Welcoming you to a life of awareness, the Presence Project is excited for you to join us for today's podcast with your host, Paul Kerzner.
Hello and welcome to episode 66 of Are You Being Present? My name is Paul Kerzner. I want to welcome you to the present moment. I want to welcome you to the here and now, and I want to thank you wholeheartedly, sincerely, and deeply for joining me in this amazing and wonderful present moment. The title and topic of today's podcast is Zooming Out in the Present Moment. Zooming out is something that I think about often as I get engrossed in a moment, when I feel like my emotions show up, when I feel my ego step in. Zooming out is something that I talk about in clinic with the patients that I work with. It's a topic of conversation with my friends. It's just something that I like to discuss often because I feel, and I've used zooming out as a presence tool. And one of the things I really like to share in this podcast are easy to use tools that have the ability to alleviate or reduce self-inflicted suffering. And at the end of the day, anything that you can use in real time to alleviate that unnecessary suffering is wonderful and can make your life that much easier. You know, it might not have as profound effect on maybe some of the adversity and challenges and suffering that you're enduring, which could be purposeful, but zooming out really is effective for the self-inflicted suffering. But zooming out actually allows you to start seeing things for how they are, for who they are, for where they are. And that's really the object of being present, is seeing things clearly, not having your reality overlaid with the emotions, with the thoughts, with the sensations that just want to take you out of the present moment. And those are really just tools of the ego. So when we talk about zooming out, it's not a literal zooming out. It's more a figurative zooming out. So what you're doing is you're basically pulling yourself back. You're pulling yourself out of the situation that you're currently entwined in so that you can get a better idea or a better perspective of what's actually happening and how it's not happening to you, but it's happening for you. And this could really be used at any point during the day when you see yourself start to get spun in or spun out of any moment. And that happens all throughout the day. Being present is a challenge for all of us, and none of us are able to stay present all day long. As long as you're in 3D, in this reality, operating as a human being, there's going to be so many distractions, aside from your ego. And then your ego is there all the time, waiting to pull you out of the present moment, because as we've talked about before, the ego doesn't want you to be present, because once you're present and you see the ego for what it is, it loses all its power. So once you start to see your ego chime in, a really great thing is to tell yourself to start zooming out, pull back, see things from a wider angle, see things from up above instead of on the ground. And that gives you the ability to start discerning between what's important, what's not important, what's relevant, what's not relevant, and then starting to make some decisions to kind of navigate your way through the experiences that you're having that are unfolding right in front of your face. Zooming out is a quintessential presence tool. And in the beginning, you're going to have to really implement it all throughout your day. Every time you start to see yourself drift off, every time you see yourself start to get stressed out, experience anxiety, stress, depression, it's a great thing to be like, wait a second, let me zoom out, let me see this from a different vantage point. What's actually happening here? What is this? Why is it getting me so triggered? Why is it making me feel this way or that way? What can I do to alleviate some of the suffering that I'm experiencing that is not purposeful, that is purposeless, that is at the hands of my ego? Zooming out is a great way to marginalize your ego, because then you start to see what your ego's doing to you and how it's affecting you in that moment, how it's trying to pull you out of the moment, whether it's trying to push you into the future or take you into the past. Zooming out allows you to see that and actually get in the middle of it. It allows you to use all your tools so that your ego can't overtake you, so that you can't be overwhelmed or overcome with emotion, with different sensations that are really just distractions that are reducing your ability to be present in the moment. Because if we're fully present in the moment, if we're seeing things exactly for how they are, not for the way we perceive them to be, things just get easier. Things become more obvious. We become more peaceful, more still. It doesn't mean that every present moment is going to be peaceful and still, but then you get into a greater sense of acceptance. You're able to zoom out and say, wait a second, I've been really resistant to this person, place, or thing. Why? And then you can kind of dig into that. And then you can engage yourself in conversation without having the ego overlay or interject and start answering those questions and create more confusion and more stress. So, zooming out is the next presence tool that I'm introducing to you. And I strongly suggest that you sit and think about what's going on in your life right now. And if you could just zoom out to see it a little bit more clearly, to see all the things, all the people, all the places that are affecting you unnecessarily. And then you can make some decisions based on the clarity that you just gained by using a tool like zooming out. Now, as you navigate this world in your reality, you need a toolbox, all these different tools. And some of them are going to work better than others. But zooming out actually is a very effective tool in real time. It's one of those things that can snap you out of being spun out or spun in based on, how many different triggers are hitting you. By zooming out, you can see them, and then you can respond instead of reacting. And that's a really powerful approach as well, because zooming out allows you to see if you've been reacting or you've been responding. The ego loves it when you react. It's almost like a knee-jerk response. And then you have all this collateral damage because you reacted based on your emotions, and then you create more problems for yourself. And the ego loves that because then you get stuck in a cycle, in a loop, and you're so far from the present moment, and you're in so much emotional pain, and then physical pain, and all these other things start showing up. So my suggestion to you is start zooming out. Think about what zooming out means to you. Think about how you could use this specific tool, zooming out, all throughout your day, and asking yourself, wait a second, can I zoom out right now? Can I just get a different perspective and shift my perceptions so I can see things a little bit more clearly and reduce the suffering that I'm experiencing right now because I'm just not being present? And of course, the first question to ask yourself is, well, am I being present? And if you start to dig into it, start peeling the layers away and say, wait a second, I'm not being present. And you go to your toolbox and you use the zooming out tool. The clarity that you're going to be gained and how it's going to shorten in duration the experience that you're having, whatever that is. Yes, adversity shows up and it has all different lengths, but we just don't want to extend it inadvertently. And using a tool like zooming out is wonderful to really give you a different perspective, a different viewpoint, to say, oh, wait a second, it's not exactly what I thought it was. And then understand why you thought it was that way, and then have the clarity and the wherewithal to do what needs to be done in the present moment. It's beautiful. And it's a tool that, like I said before, I use often. And it does give me a lot of peace, but it allows me to just smooth the edges of my reality. It doesn't mean that I don't personally face adversity and have to deal with suffering. I do. But I'm very inclined to open my toolbox and start running through all my tools so that I can get myself back to the present moment, so that I can gain the clarity that I need to get through whatever experience is unfolding for me, not to me. And zooming out allows me to shift away from that victim mentality, and allows me to be present and engage whatever or whomever is showing up in the moment. It doesn't mean that I don't have my own triggers, but I'm able to identify them that much quicker by using all my tools, especially by zooming out. And so I don't think I need to go much deeper into a tool like zooming out. I just wanted to present it to you because I feel like everyone can stand to use it as they go throughout their lives, as we endure different levels of adversity and suffering. Because that's a part of life. You're not going to be able to avoid it. And I'm not saying that you have to love it. You do have to accept it. And it is possible to engage it with a much different perspective, which will allow you to navigate that much easier. And really, the goal of this podcast is to help you alleviate a lot of the self-inflicted suffering that you're currently engaged in at the hands of your ego. So this tool, zooming out, does wonders for your life. It does wonders to your ego, and it'll allow you to achieve and stay in the present moment without having to get spun out, without losing yourself, without having to suffer needlessly for long periods of time. So I hope that this tool and this podcast is helpful for you, but it's only going to be as helpful as you make it, as you remember, as you engage it, as you use it. So my insistence is to use a tool like this as often as you can to take yourself out of the unnecessary self-inflicted suffering that you're currently engaged in, and to head back to the present moment where everything is clear and everything is exactly how it should be. I wish for you peace, prosperity, abundance, but more importantly, I wish for you presence.
Thank you for listening to the Are You Being Present podcast, brought to you by the Presence Projects. Remember, you have a choice. Choose to be present.